Good morning, everybody. It's Bear with BearIndependent.com, and today I wanted to give you all some practical lessons from real-world tacmed training that we've been doing as an organization, as refuge training for about the last year, but specifically the last 10 days we've been on tour. We say go on tour, much like a band goes on tour and makes multiple stops during one trip. We do the same thing. And so we've been on tour, Cleveland, Philly, Roanoke, Virginia, etc. And you see the same things recurring over and over again with students, the same things recurring over and over again in class. And I wanted to bring some of these lessons to you. They're interesting observations for sure, and you may be able to use them to glean a nugget or two. So the first is possession does not equate to proficiency. We talk about this all the time here at the channel, and the example I like to make is if you have an AR-15 but it's not zeroed and it lives under your bed and you've never shot it or you don't shoot it regularly, that does not make you an operator, right? In fact, I think that's more detrimental than not having it at all. If the rifle's not zeroed, it doesn't exist. You have a false sense of confidence. We see this a lot with students in class. And when I say students, let's see, just this last tour, we had everybody from tree guys to electricians to doctors to nurses to police officers to firefighters to maintenance technicians, all walks of life, and many walks of life that you would expect actually know how to do this stuff. Doctors, nurses, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, law enforcement officers. Nope. We start the class, you have a trainer kit in front of you, tourniquet, chest seals, nasopharyngeal, airway, combat gauze, trainer, pressure bandage, etc. sitting right there in front of you. And it's just a matter of time before we mess you up. It's right there in front of you. And at some point, simulated, we start shooting. And y'all just got shot in the left arm. Go. And we time you. With a tourniquet right in front of you, people bleed out and die. It takes 90 seconds, roughly, for you to lose 50% of your volume of blood. You will end up in what's called irreversible shock. And what we're talking is hypovolemic shock, meaning you've lost enough blood that you're going into shock. You go unconscious with 50% loss of blood. 90 seconds from the femoral artery, and about 2 minutes if you're dealing with your arm extremity, okay? And we're timing people, and they're dying. We're checking radial pulses. Still got a pulse, tourniquet's not tight enough. So people who should know, who have the equipment right in front of them, are dying, air quote, in class. Possession does not equate to proficiency. You have to train this stuff, and you have to properly train this stuff. Improperly putting a tourniquet on is not training. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of people said, Bear, why won't you do online classes? Because I can't check your pulse and make sure you've got it on tight enough, right? And we teach the radial pulse in class, in the 4-hour class, 8-hour classes, so forth and so on. Even having taught people how to check a radial pulse, they still have difficulty in discerning whether or not they've got their tourniquet tight enough. Which, by the way, it's one turn past MFer. You're gonna make this face, it's gonna hurt. Tourniquets hurt. That's how we know they're working. So possession does not equate to proficiency. OODA loop and your response time. Getting back to, we pull out simulated firearms and start shooting. The number of people that sit there in class, and by the way, students, I'm not ragging on y'all. I love y'all. Everybody did great on this class. Most of y'all did great. We're gonna come back to that in a moment. The vast majority of y'all did great. And by the way, our benchmark for success is half the class dies, air quote, in the beginning of the class. By the end of the class, nobody dies, and they're triaging and treating other people as well. That's an awesome thing, right? OODA loop. We start shooting, and everybody in the class, everybody is sitting there going, oh my gosh, did Bear just shoot that guy? Why would Bear do that? I thought he was a good guy. Is that a real gun? Is that a fake gun? Is that guy actually dying? Oh my God, he shot me too. What's going on here? Why would Bear do that? One very sweet lady. I'm facing away from the class and I turn around and just start pop, 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 pop. And she goes, oh shit. Throws her coffee up in the air. And ma'am, you rocked. You were awesome. But it's indicative of, even with people who should know better, law enforcement, EMS, firefighters, their OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act, has been all jacked up. And they're burning time trying to process what just happened because it doesn't fit with the framework. So the more you train, the more you shorten that response time. And part of the Responder 3 classes that we do, which is for civilians, it's TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, whereas the military law enforcement side is Tactical Combat Casualty Care. But part of that 8-hour class is just jacking with your OODA loop over and over and over again. Oh, you're working on this guy and poof, you just got covered in blood in your face and now you can't see, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, and here's another casualty you've got to deal with, and so forth and so on. And so that OODA loop in your response time, so many of us think that when bad stuff happens, we're going to immediately respond. Turns out that's not the case. We have to train that response. If you don't train that response, you do not rise to your level of expectation. You fall to your level of training. Another example of this was in one of the 4-hour classes in Philadelphia. Young man had neglected to eat breakfast and his blood sugar dropped. And we're in a class of 25, 26 students, and he gets real rigid, starts leaning back in his chair, starts sliding out of his chair onto the floor. And stalwart peacekeeper who was instructing with me, I was looking this way, peacekeeper's looking this way. He sees it, I see him move out of the corner of my eye. He runs across the room, grabs a hold of a student in a rolling chair, yeets him out of the way, gets to the guy, eases him to the ground. We had a doctor in the room, doctor gets there, I get over there, check his radial pulse. He's got a good, healthy pulse. He's got good, strong respirations. So we're talking to him, hey, you're okay, you okay? What's going on? And his eyes roll back forward, he regains visual acuity. He's like, whoa, what happened? I don't know, you tell me, homie. Turns out his blood sugar was low. We got him a granola bar. It was cool. The whole class was like, I have food. What do you want to eat? What do you need, right? But still, the whole class, we're in a tactical medical setting. We're to the gills stuffed with medical equipment. We've got highly qualified professionals all over the place. And everybody in the class is sitting there going, oh my gosh, what's happening? Is that guy a crisis actor? Is he gonna be okay? Is this part of the class? Are they pulling a fast one on me? Why would he do that? He's on the ground now. It's like, come on. That's why we call these classes Responder 1, Responder 2, Responder 3, so that you can recognize that something is wrong, so that you can respond to whatever that issue may be, and then you can resolve that issue. Whether that's with our sidearm, or our long gun, or our medical equipment and training, or by elevating to a higher level of care, so forth and so on. And so that OODA loop and that response time is a real thing, and we see it over and over in the class, again and again and again. And so we think that we're gonna be the hero. What we don't realize is you have to train to be the hero, because your natural response time is going to be way slower than you think that it is, and people tend to freeze up when they get their OODA loop jacked. That can get you killed. Somebody else could be bleeding out and they could die from that, and so you have to train that. Another thing you see is desensitization. The first time in the 4-hour class, the Responder 1, which is Stop the Bleed Plus for us. The average Stop the Bleed's like an hour long, maybe a couple hours long. Ours is a 4-hour class, and it's our TCCC curriculum boiled down into a 4-hour curriculum where we work the entirety of the March algorithm. Massive bleeding, airway, respiratory, circulation, head injury, hypothermia, and everything else. So in that 4-hour class, the first time we have students properly apply a tourniquet, the amount of complaining is absurd. It's absurd. People are breathing heavy. I mean, to their arm, just to their arm, they're breathing heavy. Oh my gosh, it hurts so much. Oh man, it hurts. Ugh. But really? Is it really? And I like to ask people, so who's ready to go fight the government now? Tough guys. Oh, well, when the world ends, I'm just gonna... You had a tourniquet on for 1 minute and you're sitting here bitching. Yeah, it hurts. Somebody could be shooting at us right now. There could be a major motor vehicle accident right now. There could be all kinds of things going on right now. And we're gonna sit here and complain about, oh, this tourniquet hurts. That's the first time they put it on in the 4-hour class. By the end of the 4-hour class, not that big a deal. By the way, put one on your leg. Doesn't feel great. Then you get into the 8-hour class, Responder 3, which is scenario-based simunitions training, where you've got a tourniquet on each leg, and you're picking up and moving casualties and doing wind sprints up and down the hallways and making laps around the training facility, quarter mile at a time, and then we're gonna run up the stairwells, and then we're gonna triage ourselves, we're gonna treat ourselves, and then we're gonna treat other casualties. Next thing you know, you've had a tourniquet on each leg for a half an hour, and it hurts, and it doesn't matter anymore because you've been desensitized. We've been microdosing you with adversity throughout the entirety of the class, to the point where by the end of the class, it's not a big deal anymore. And that phrase, microdosing adversity, I heard that on a podcast with Andy Frisella, and I love that phrase, microdosing adversity. It's a phenomenal way to explain what we're talking about here. It's desensitization. You need to do that. However, whatever it is in your life, you need to desensitize to this adversity. You need to voluntarily engage with adversity. So when it's time to do the things, you're not going, oh my gosh, my arm hurts so much. Yeah, that's how you know the tourniquet's working. And no, it is not life over limb. 19,000 applications of the CAT tourniquet during the global war on terror. Not one person has lost a limb due to the tourniquet. Several people have lost limbs due to the injury that required them to have the tourniquet applied, but not because of the tourniquet. And they can be left on for up to 12 hours with no nerve damage, no muscle damage. And in fact, the longest recorded time a CAT tourniquet has been left on was 18 hours from southern Afghanistan to Germany. The soldier was grievously injured. They put a tourniquet on and they decided, we're gonna fly this guy straight out of southern Afghanistan to Germany into surgery. 18 hours, not an issue. So having one on your leg for a half an hour, you're gonna be okay. In fact, we get that question all the time in class. Is this safe? Guys, if it wasn't safe, my arms would be 4 inches long. They would have all fallen off by now, all right? I put the tourniquet on 100 times in the last few days. So, and also stress inoculation. You start with, getting back to microdosing adversity, you start with this baseline level of this sucks. But you can build from there. Much like when you go into the gym, nobody starts deadlifting, 4 plates on each side of the bar their first day. Well, a few of you freaks do, but most people don't. Most people start with the bar and maybe a plate or 2. Start there. And the more you do it, the more you can lift. Stress inoculation. We see the same thing with some of the images that we show in the slideshow, and we don't show the images for the sake of being gruesome, but to illustrate the types of injuries that people could be dealing with: compound fractures, mechanical amputations, so forth and so on. And when people first see that, it's usually a collective ugh. By the end of Responder 3, it's like, oh yeah, this is what I would do to that. And you're looking at people meat. People meat's gross. But if we don't get past, again, dealing with that interruption, jacking up our OODA loop, if we don't get past, okay, people meat's gross, cool, this person's dying, what am I gonna do to help them? It doesn't matter. And so stress inoculation is a big one as well. I've touched on this a little bit, danced around it, but it bears repeating. None of us are as good as we think we are. Not one of us. Had a law enforcement officer said during this last tour, he said, I've been to 4 or 5 TCCC classes, and this class is the best one I've ever been to. Sweet. That's high praise. But again, we're in a classroom setting where we have everything we need, in the 4-hour classroom setting, where we have everything we need to problem solve sitting right in front of us. And most people, even EMS, EMTs, medics, combat lifesavers, current and separated combat lifesaver qualified personnel, doctors, surgeons, nurses, firefighters, sheriffs, nope, failing to perform because they've had a lack of training or they've had incorrect training. None of us are as good as we think we are, which is why we need to go train. Just like we all understand that shooting is a perishable skill, right? The fundamentals, it's like riding a bike, but you got to get out there to have the speed and endurance to be able to ride that bike all day, right? Same thing. We understand this with shooting. It's a perishable skill. You got to get your dry fire in. You got to spend your time at the range. You got to do not just square range stuff, but you got to shoot and move because a static shooter is a dead shooter. We get this. We understand this. But for some reason, tacmed, or just crisis medicine, has this idea that, well, I'll figure it out when I need to. Bro, you're dying. Is that really the best time to figure it out? Is the best time to zero your AR when you need to pull it out from underneath your bed when the bad guy's trying to kick your door in? Or should that have already been done? So none of us, myself included, are as good as we think we are. And there's actually some classes coming up, higher level training classes, that I'm looking forward to attending so that I can work on my base knowledge, so that the level of training that I will fall to under stress will be higher and higher and higher. And that allows us to build our expertise as refuge training and bring that to you and make our product better and better and better, right? So none of us are as good as we think we are. And lastly, training should be engaging, not necessarily fun. We tell class all the time, hey, this can be a lecture if you want it to be. If you're not willing to engage, I'll sit here and talk at you, but it's going to be boring for both of us. And that's when I said, hey, students, y'all did great, comma. A few people, it amazes me, a few people behaving as if they're at some type of corporate mandated, synergy training that they have to, endure. It's like, you paid good money to be here. Put your phone away, pay attention, wake up, respond when spoken to. So if you're gonna go to a class, whether it be our training or anybody else's training, if you're not interested in actually being there, don't waste your money and don't waste my time. Just don't come, just stay home. And this is just a few people, but man, you see it regularly. It's like, why are you here? What's the point? Because I'm not up here to entertain you. I'm here to teach you and instruct you. It's not the Bear Show Live, right? We have a curriculum that we're going to work, and we're going to get through this, and we're going to teach you. You're going to leave here better than you came. If you're not willing to engage in that, what's the point? Why come? And so training, whether it's a training that you attend or training you put on for somebody, if you're training your mutual assistance group or your church security team, or you're a teacher in school and you're now learning this crisis medicine and you want to bring this back to your ISD or your kindergarten class or whatever, training should be fun and engaging, mostly engaging. And when it's engaging, it becomes fun. And by engaging, I mean real world scenarios, real hands-on training, not death by PowerPoint. And so I know there's nuggets in here for you to take back to your situation with whatever you have going on. But these are observations of American humanity within the framework of tacmed training. But I think they're applicable outside of that, all across the board for all the things we do as preppers. So, possession does not equate to proficiency. You need to be able to deal with your OODA loop getting jacked up so you can shorten that response time. And you do that through desensitization, microdosing adversity, and stress inoculation, because none of us are as good as we think we are. We all still have something to learn, myself included, for sure. And as you're doing this, it should be fun and engaging, and you should leave better than you came. I hope there was some nuggets in here for y'all. I appreciate you, Bear Nation. If you're new here, go ahead and click that little subscribe button, ring the bell so YouTube will pretend to notify you when we drop another video or go live. And as always, shout out to the patrons. We appreciate you guys. Couldn't do it without you. There's a baby bear somewhere down here in the corner. If you click the baby bear, it'll take you to the link for Patreon. And you can sign up. It's $5 a month. I think it's incredibly high value. We drop constant content over there, exclusive content over there that will never see the light of day on YouTube for all the reasons. So, bless y'all. Shalom.